19th. We're going to call our meeting to order. We're going to have a pledge of allegiance by Councilmember Hill, and then we're going to have a reverence by Councilmember Hancock.
Please repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Watch over not only our city. Yes.
Thank you. We want to excuse Council members Rappaletto and Craig, who are not here with us tonight. So as far as upcoming events, we just remind you to look at our monthly newsletter that's on our website. We have our Easter egg coming up and also the city cleanup. So make sure you look at those events. So first we have public comments. Is there anyone here that would like to make a public comment? Seeing no public comments, we will move on then to our first consent item, which is approval of the minutes dated March 5th, 2026. Is there any corrections on those minutes? Okay, if no one has any corrections, then is there someone that would like to make a motion to approve those?
I'll make that motion to approve.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Hill. Is there a second?
Second that motion.
Second was made by Councilmember Hancock. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, so the first thing we have then as an action item is the motion approval of our economic development policy. So we had already talked about this previously. I sent out the redlined version. I didn't hear back from anybody with any corrections. We have both of our writers, Rob Sant and Cody Dieter, here with us tonight. So do you have any questions on that? Or if not, if we're ready to just approve that policy?
I had a discussion with Ryan the other day about just how we are potentially, how does this tie us in down the road? Like if we adopt CRAs and stuff, from what I read, it doesn't bind us to do anything in the future, just this particular instance, it's a case by case basis, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So this is just a framework for when, in the event that you decide that you want to create a CRA or you want to create some sort of financing incentive, this is just a framework to help guide that, but you're not bound to do anything by adopting it.
Yeah, it's not locking us into
Correct.
anything down
Yep.
the road. Okay.
Yep.
That brings up my question is, if you have a policy kind of, you're adopting something that you agree this is your framework to use in the future, or and I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I think at least for Hooper City and a lot of the surrounding communities, this is an unproven policy with CRAs and TIFs. Just recently we've got Far West using one or just applied for one. And I think they're a little bit unproven as far as Weber County goes. I know I reached out to Stephanie Russell and she sent me kind of a framework for what Weber County uses, and it's very conservative. You've probably seen it. It very limits using CRAs and TIFs to commercial development and not residential at all. It limits the timeframe to 10 years, limits the cap on the dollar amount, and the tax increment to 50%. And so, that's quite a bit less than what we initially were proposed with the project we dealt with last year. And so, that being said, I think as a city, we could still use these not policies, these tools, CRAs and TIFs, without creating a policy, if that makes sense. Like, to me, if you're creating a policy, that means the entire council has agreed with it and we're ready to just use these tools, today. And my whole fear is that it's an unproven tool, especially for Hooper City. We don't know how it's going to work. None of us have been down this road before. We don't know the successes, the failures, all in between. We have no idea. And to adopt a policy that hasn't been proven, for me, is iffy. And
Yeah.
so that's where my hang up is I don't know how these tools are going to work. I'm not saying I'll never look at them and say, hey, here's a possibility to use. I'm just saying I hate to adopt a policy that ties me to it if I don't know how that's going to work for me on a project in the future.
Do you want me to answer that? Okay. So fair point. For at least for Hooper, a lot of, I would say the CRAs and tax increment financing in Weber County is used by a lot of cities, and some of them goes back since the 80s. So for a municipality, tax increment financing is the main tool that you would use if needed, right? And it's a proven tool for sure. The policy, and again, the goal of the policy isn't to tie you into doing anything. It's when you're approached by a developer, when you're approached by a business or an entity that needs to create tax increment, right? So maybe there's different obstacles in the way. So there's a lot of infrastructure need for any development that's going to happen in Hooper, a commercial development, and other things that could make it so they can't just develop. They need some sort of public assistance. And that's what this tool is made for, and not the policy, but the CRA tool. But what's good about the policy is it helps weed out maybe some projects that you wouldn't be interested in pursuing. And it kind of helps guide developers where if they do want to create a CRA or they do want to create a PID or something, there's a framework in place and there's procedures and a process in place that would just help you as a body decide if you wanted to create a CRA or create a PID. It doesn't force you to do that. You still have that decision and you would still need to go through the different steps to do that. This is just more of a way to kind of, I would say, guard your door, right? It's a way to help that initial step. But you still need to go through the whole process of vetting projects and deciding if it's something that you would want to do. And I would say with the county and the school districts, they have a lot of those policies in place, and they are more strict and more stringent than the policy that you have in front of you. And we didn't really want to say, hey, you're limited to a certain amount of years and a certain amount of percentage, because on a case-by-case basis, we want to look at those individually. So, but I get your perspective of, being worried that this will bind you as a board, and as a council, but I think we crafted it in a way that it shouldn't do that. And I think it's smart to have these. I think more cities would be good, right? Counties and school districts, like I mentioned, those taxing entities, they have a lot of policies, and even a lot of your special service districts are having them. Cities don't really have them as frequent as those ones. And I think it's a smart policy to have because it just protects you as a council.
Well, I would have that same concern that if we approve of policy that we're making a step forward as though we're agreeing to all this. And I don't know why we couldn't be selective with these, whether it's a CRA, a PID, a TIF. I don't know why we couldn't be selective with those without having a policy in place. Why couldn't we just, it just seems like a policy is almost setting a direction that maybe we wouldn't want to go.
So in my, I don't know, Cody, you want to add something, but in my opinion, I don't think this is saying, hey, we're going to create CRAs, we're going to create PIDs. It's just saying in the event that we decide we want to do that, right? And we included throughout the policy that you as a council, and then if it is a CRA, a board, you can be selective. It's just saying, hey, these are the steps that we're going to require if we do decide to create a CRA or a PID. So we'll use the example that you had, right? When you had the developer come in, they're like, hey, we want to do this. And then they gave you a feasibility study. They did all this stuff. This is now putting steps and tools in place that you as a council are in charge of and you have control over.
So we had already discussed in council before about doing the policy. We have already secured this company to do the policy. So are there things in here you would like changed differently? Because when we discussed this before, we had already approved to do a policy. And then they were writing this up. They sent it to us. Then we were waiting to see if there were some things with the legislative session, if there were things, and they built that into that. So this is something that we had already decided to do. So is there things in here you would like to see them? That was the purpose of sending out that red lined copy to you to see. And it's not, this doesn't have to be, if you don't feel quite comfortable with this yet, and there are things you would like to have them change, that's certainly something we could do. And like he said, it is really a flexible, broad, that it is really good to have some kind of policy. And I know already it's been a beneficial tool even for our city planner, as we've had developers will say, oh, we'd be interested in this, that he could actually say, well, here's a draft form of a policy so they can see, because if it's not anything the city would ever consider, it won't ever be in our policy. But again, it gives us that flexibility.
I just received an email from Stephanie today. Otherwise, I would have been more prepared to talk about this. But she included some language that I think is worth looking at. I can certainly send it to everybody to look at it and see if it's even worth incorporating. I think now that I've learned more about it in this last several weeks, I think it's definitely worth putting in some language that really restricts the CRAs to commercial developments instead of residential, because we don't want to finance a developer's project for residential development. That's not what a CRA in my mind is intended for. The other thing I read about CRAs is that if a project is going to happen no matter what, without a CRA or without a TIF or a PID, then it's not smart to invest in that project. If they're going to build it anyway with private money, then it's not smart to throw public money at it.
Yep.
And so I think we need to probably emphasize that a little bit more as well in this policy. And I think Stephanie has included language to those two things.
Yep. And that's addressed in the policy, but
Okay.
we're definitely great with revising and adding some of that. But we do have in there that they need to have some sort of but for, right? And again, without the policy, you don't have that in place. But with the policy, you do say, hey, before we consider a CRA, before we consider a PID, we need to have a but for analysis. We need to have a feasibility study. We need to see a cost benefit, right? And so those are in place. And I do agree, as a city, as any taxing entity, you only want to participate in these if there is a true but for and a true need. So yeah, if you want to add more language to that in here, we're great. And then the other thing I would just say is we do have eligible and priority business types in here where we prioritize businesses agricultural, ag support or value added agricultural uses, light industrial and flex space uses, employment generating. So we do say really, hey, we want businesses. And then we say lower priority and discourage uses. And we do mention housing and some other things there. So we do address that, but we could definitely want to, yeah. And what we try to do with these is we want to keep them, we want to make sure that we do address those concerns. But we also, if let's say that there's a use right now that maybe you don't want, and then you say, we're not going to allow this. And then you have someone come in and they want to do something that you think's great, but now you have a policy that says we're not going to do it. We don't want to tie your hands in any way with this policy. We really just want it to help you as a council make informed decisions that are beneficial for the residents and for the city.
Would you feel comfortable, Councilmember Hill, then tabling this and then working a little bit more on the language?
That's what I was going to suggest. I'll just throw one thing out there that she included in hers was, it's called a tax increment allocation scoring system.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've seen that
Yeah.
in other ones before, but that might be beneficial to us as well, to create a scoring system where we, place more emphasis on the things that we're looking for
Yeah.
as a council. So anyway, I hate to throw this on you at the last minute because
No,
I
it's
just
great.
barely got this email today. I apologize. But I think it would be worthwhile to send this to everybody, even you
Yeah.
guys, and maybe tweak it and add a little bit more
Yep.
to it before we
So-
approve it. Or
Yeah, and that's great. So our team, just, I have a great relationship with Stephanie.
Mhm.
I actually helped her draft their policy, and I've helped Davis County draft theirs and a lot of the other entities. So I'm great to even work with her and send her this and say, hey, what would you think could be some good things that we could add?
Is everybody okay with that? And I would also like Councilman Craig and Ropalato to take a look at this as well, just so we're all on the same page with it, if that's okay.
I agree.
I think they've probably reviewed it, but we haven't got much input back from them yet because of the situation. So, but I think you pretty well answered my questions, and I'm good with where you're going, but I think Ryan maybe has some valid points there.
I'll make a motion to table the approval of the development policy pending some more information.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
The motion was made by Councilmember Hill. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
The second is made by Councilmember Fowers. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries, and we'll table that. Okay, so the next thing we have is a business license. Thank you. Do you want to first? If you want to come up, the business license is for the watering hole. Do you want to come up? We'll turn some time to Rachel. So,
Sure.
okay. Just state your name.
Rachel Larson. So I'm starting a new business and it's called the Water and Hole. We've turned a few trailers, old horse trailers into soda bars. And we go around to private events, birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, retirement parties. And so we're just looking for a business license so we can get this thing off the ground and going.
Is there any questions from the council? Or-
How big is your property?
It's a half acre.
Okay.
And then I also have a friend that lets me put a few trailers on her property and it's a half acre.
Is it just curiosity contiguous to yours?
I'm sorry, what?
Does it touch her property or is it close?
It's just a block away.
Okay.
But you're not doing the trailers from your home. You're taking to a private event somewhere.
We'd like the Copper Nickel or the Hooper Red Barn or just, usually we don't do it at the house. We just store them there.
Drinks. It's drinks. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. No, it was drinks. I saw one of the pictures from the Copper Nickel that they
Yeah.
had set up their specialty
Mhm.
drinks for like wedding
I have my business
receptions. And-
card. You guys can scan my QR.
Okay.
We did an event here not a little while ago. We just donated it for a fundraiser. So we do a lot of fundraising for the
Curiosity, you said a few trailers. How many is a few in your estimation?
two.
Two? That's pretty few.
Yeah, just a few. I have one more, but until I get these two like booked and going a lot, then but it's a friend's house and it needs new tires and everything, and I can't even get it out.
Two is not something I would have concern over. When you said a few, I was, that's pretty general, but yeah, I understand. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Any other questions from council or Rachel?
So just to that point, you have a half acre lot, and you have two trailers, you're able to park those trailers on your lot and not in the street, correct? Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'll make the motion to approve the business license for the watering hole for Rachel Larson.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilmember Hill. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second was made by Councilmember Hancock. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Okay, that's all we have for our meeting tonight. So with that, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Motion made by Councilmember Flowers and seconded by Councilmember Hill. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion, we're adjourned for the night. Thank you.
That's cool. See it's starting to pop up.
Yeah, we're fun.
How busy have you guys been?
We're starting to get pretty busy. It's just missed order a big top fundraiser and then I just think about it the other day. So I'm like starting to get stuff like weekly or every other week. Like sometimes I get. It's cool.
Yeah, you see the kind of business.
Yeah.
You